Hello. We are going live everywhere. Hold, please. Just enjoying some bubbly while we do this. Oh, there we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Dr. Nicole Smith, nurse practitioner, perimenopause and menopause specialist with Anti-Gravity Wellness. I'm the founder. This is a virtual telehealth practice in Washington State. I help with all things hormone, nutrition, and diet, and exercise. Very comprehensive programs here. So women who are struggling with their hormone balance, whether that's thyroid, adrenals, or sex hormones, this is the place to come to. That's what we specialize in. So today, I wanted to talk to you guys about endocrine disruptors. I get asked a lot, why are people having such issues with things like thyroid disorder, especially women? The rates of Hashimoto's is actually increasing, which is the most common cause of low thyroid or thyroiditis, thyroid disease, especially in women. What is going on with this? So sometimes we say, oh, it's because we're testing for it more. And hopefully we are actually testing properly, because just a TSH is not enough. You can still be symptomatic and have a normal TSH. We used to get taught that in school, that, oh, all you have to do is check the TSH, and if it's normal, then moving on. No, that's not the case. We need to take a deeper look and look at some other things that are happening. TSH is the signal that comes from the brain and goes to the thyroid and tells it, hey, we need more thyroid hormone kicked out. Then the thyroid goes, cool. So it needs components such as iodine to make T4. And then T4 needs to be activated to T3. That happens in the peripheral tissues. So there's things that can happen along that path. It's like any type of conveyor line or product line. If you're putting something together, anywhere along that process, something can break. And if something breaks somewhere along the line or isn't functioning properly, you're going to have a product that's not good, right? So we end up with a low T3 level, even with a normal TSH, even with a normal free T4. The T3 is what we really care about in the very end, because that's what's actually acting on the cells. You'll have symptoms of a low metabolism of thyroid disease, even in the absence of having an abnormal TSH. So it's important that we're testing further. But there are things in our lives that are contributing to these endocrine disruptions that we're experiencing. And as we go through perimenopause, women over 35 will start to notice that what they could tolerate before, they can't tolerate anymore. It becomes a real big problem. So some things that we can talk about. Let's start with stress and cortisol. So chronic stress. This was one of my main things that I always tested for with everyone, is I would do what's called a salivary diurnal cortisol test. What does all that mean? It's a spit test. And so you spit into these little tubes, and you start in the morning when you first wake up, and then take them throughout the day, and it tests your cortisol level. Because our cortisol, it's supposed to start up here, and then it gradually increases. It helps you to wake up. We need cortisol to be alive, or else you're dead. So cortisol rises, and then it's supposed to gradually decrease over the course of the day. But there's people who have chronic stress, and we've got various degrees of that, different stages that they can go through. So in the initial stages, cortisol levels are really high. They're too high. Running all the time. So you're constantly in that sympathetic nervous system state, fight or flight, all the time. You never really relax. And there can be many reasons for this, not just because you're stressed out. There can also just be stress in the body from chronic inflammation. Maybe there's a low-grade infection going on, something like that. Carrying around too much body fat in and of itself is inflammatory. The actual fat cells release inflammatory cytokines. So these things can really contribute to that. Later on down the road, we go into stage 2, where we start to see a drop in the cortisol levels. It's not that the stress is gone, and it's not that your adrenals get tired. So adrenal fatigue is kind of a misnomer, but we still use it because basically your system is kind of getting worn out, but it's your brain that actually is saying, you know what, the situation is not changing. The lion is still chasing us. So instead of continuing to run, because this isn't working, we are going to downregulate the system so it stops sending the signal to the adrenal gland so you don't release as much cortisol, because we need to go hide in the cave. So it makes you tired on purpose. So that fatigue that you can be experiencing, it's actually a signal to your body, from your body, that something is going on here that we need to address. So ignoring that is not the answer, but a lot of us do that, right? We just push through it. Unfortunately, our society is kind of set up that way to just push through, push, continually outputting and not getting enough recovery in between. And that's a real problem. And then we get into stage 3, which is chronic advanced fatigue, where basically the cortisol, not necessarily, diagnostic Western medicine, because we've got Addison's and we've got Cushing's on either side of the, the cortisol pathway here, but it's what's called stage 3 fatigue. So your cortisol levels are just like pretty much bottomed out. So and they can even start to go high at night. So you end up being tired, but wired. You can't sleep even though you're freaking exhausted. But then during the day, you're just exhausted. So it turns into this cycle that can really spin you downward. So this will contribute to weight gain, to daytime fatigue that is debilitating. I actually suffered from this myself through the doctorate program. I had too much on my plate, quite honestly. But somehow I still made it through. So stage 3 fatigue. So you're totally flatlined, and you can have fatigue, weight gain, mood swings, and alterations in your insulin sensitivity. So you'll end up with that insulin resistance because the body, again, it's thinking that you're always under attack, you're always stressed out. Cortisol actually has a lot to do with our insulin regulation. So when it's off, that's going to be off. So some things that we can do: listen to your body. If you are tired, go to bed. Like really, really take a look at your sleep habits. If you're sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, maybe some men can get away with that, but especially women, as we're transitioning through perimenopause and menopause, we need more sleep, not less. We should be getting around 9 hours every night. 9 hours every night. And I know that feels like a lot and you have a lot to do. I get it. But if you're able to get proper rest and really recover on a regular basis, the quality of the work that you do during the day and the way that you can actually show up and be present is 1,000 times better and 1,000 times more productive. So you get more done in less time when you're not exhausted all the time. Makes sense. Then there's also relaxation things that we can do. There's adaptogens that we can use, especially in those advanced stages of chronic fatigue. Ashwagandha is a really great one. We like to use that one. Licorice root is another one. We have a couple others too that we can use. And then sometimes we also use DHEA and pregnenolone. These are precursor hormones that come from the adrenal glands. And when our stress levels are constantly high, we're just burning through them like crazy. So sometimes taking a little bit in can be very beneficial. Caveat, of course, always consult with your provider before starting any supplements, herbals, or otherwise. Even things that are over the counter, just because they're available over the counter doesn't mean they're safe for everyone. You must do your due diligence and make sure that they don't interact with any of your other medications, any of your other supplements or herbals or teas, and that you have also talked to your doctor about any pre-existing conditions that you have that could be a problem. And some of these also require some monitoring, like your liver function or your kidney function, because they can affect those things. So it's very important to make sure that we talk about that as well. Number 2 is diet and your sugar intake. So one of the things that can really happen, and one of the causes of type 2 diabetes, aside from having too much body fat and genetic predisposition to having type 2 diabetes, is spikes in insulin and spikes in glucose that the body wasn't prepared for. So the paleo community kind of has a little bit right in the fact that our bodies did evolve over billions of years, millions and billions of billions of years. And we didn't always have these highly processed, stripped down foods that are now available in the standard American diet. When we stripped out the fiber, we stripped out the nutrition, the nutrients, the things that made it a whole food, and then also then added in extra fructose, extra, the high fructose corn syrups, and even now, like, oh, well, it's all natural, real sugar. It's still sugar. It's still highly processed, right? And it's still problematic, especially without the fiber, without the water, because it gets into the bloodstream too fast, and the body can't adapt to that over the long term very well. And so this is why we see these issues with, alterations in the lipid panel, where we're having the LDL, which is the low density lipoprotein, or lousy type of cholesterol, going too high because there's more inflammation in the body. And then we're also seeing insulin resistance because, again, every time we spike it and we spike it and we spike it, the body is just not able to compensate for that. And over time, the cells are like, I am done with you. And we'll just start shutting things down, and it will not take that in. So this in and of itself will cause inflammation in the body. When you have too much sugar running around in your bloodstream and it can't get into the cells fast enough, then you will end up with inflammation. It's definitely an inflammatory process. So what can we do about this? Well, if it's the diet that's causing it, we need to start with the diet, right? So let's put back in those foods that have the fiber, that have the water, that are whole foods, that haven't been stripped of all of their nutrition to be condensed into a packaged form that isn't even really, it's kind of Frankenfood, right? So as opposed, think of a donut versus an apple. And that kind of seems like a no-brainer, but a donut has been stripped of everything. There's really no real nutritional value to it. It's just kind of what's called empty calories, meaning compared to an apple, which has fiber, it has water, it has micronutrients, it has vitamins, and it still has sugar. But because of the package that it comes in, it is slower to digest. And also you can eat a lot of calories from a donut. It's harder to have that equivalent calories from apples. Like, you have to eat a lot more apples to get the same amount of calories. So it's too easy to get that many calories, and that causes issues because then we're over consuming, and then you're ending up with too much fat storage because your body's like, well, I don't need to burn this. I'll just store it, right? Makes sense. So switching out those foods and just replacing them. So trying, instead of like, oh, I'm just going to eliminate all things that have any kind of sugar in them. That can be really hard, especially this time of year. Hello, holidays, and it's everywhere. So, and I'm definitely an advocate of, like, if you especially things you really like, if you tell yourself, I'm never going to have that, you'll end up probably binge eating it later. That's just human behavior. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or anything like that. You're just a person. Okay. But what we can do instead is make sure you're drinking plenty of water, having protein, 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight all day long, making sure you're getting that in, and then having those fibrous foods, getting 30 grams of fiber a day. So when you start to prioritize these things, and then whatever room is left over, if you are still a little hungry or you just want a little treat, have a little bit, and it's totally fine, right? So that is how you can work with that. Okay, number 3, and our very last one, is environmental toxins, like endocrine disruptors. So we're talking about like personal hygiene products, plastics, and things like that. My husband and I switched over to glass, like Pyrex, for our meal prep a long time ago. When you heat your food up in plastic, it just heats the plastic right into the food. And we're already full of plastic as it is, unfortunately. So let's try and avoid that, any more exposure. These are forever chemicals that get into our bodies, and we still don't fully know what they do. But we have done studies on mice and things like that, and we can see that it does interfere with the endocrine system, with the hormone system, in very bad ways. So it's definitely something we want to try and avoid. Pesticides is another one. This is why there's that big push for organic, though you still have to be careful with that, because just because it's organic doesn't mean that there's not any pesticides. They just use different pesticides. So, but being aware of that, if you're wanting to kind of balance that out, if you go look up Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 is a great place to go, where you can see, okay, these are the Dirty Dozen that I should probably, these fruits or vegetables that I should probably try and get organic if I can, because the pesticides that are used in conventional farming are pretty bad, like straight up Roundup, and it's like on there and gets absorbed in. So a lot of things that typically, anything that you eat the skin, those ones you typically want to try and get organic if you can. So another thing I do is for the skincare products. I'm going to pull up my app here so I can show you guys. I use an app called Yucca. It's YUKA. And it's really great because you can scan things. You see that? Yeah. So here you see some things that are like I was looking, my husband was looking for a different shampoo. I've got him hooked on this thing. So we were scanning these different shampoos and trying to see which ones had a good score. So what it does is it gives you like, ooh, I don't want to put anything on blast here, but this particular shampoo is an 18 out of 100. So anything 50 or 100 is considered good. They have like grades of that. But this particular shampoo, and again, I'm not going to put it on blast. It has like this benzyl salicylate, which is moderate risk. And it's cool because it actually shows you the research studies and what the chemical is and why it has been shown to be a problem. Might even be banned in the European European, yeah, which they have a lot of things that are banned over there that we don't ban over here. So I don't know if that'll ever change, but and then I have a bunch of other things. And then it's really cool too, because at the bottom, it'll show you alternatives. So if you're like, oh man, I really like that one, well, it'll show you other ones that you could try. Like Shea Moisture is really good. They usually have really good ones without harmful silicone, without harmful sulfate. Because seriously, are you like, there's so many chemicals out there. It's hard to, it can feel really overwhelming. You're like, what am I supposed to do? But this is a really great tool to use, and Yucca app, YUKA, and you can just download it on your phone, and it's donation based. So I give them $15 a year and you get the full thing. There is a free version where you can enter in the product information. You just can't scan. So if you want to be able to scan with the barcode, which is convenient, right? And then you can also put in your own stuff. So I've also done my cosmetic products and things like that. And you have to actually look at every individual product, because some, like one brand, you'd think that brand is clean and it's like a good one. But then when you scan all of their products, some of them actually are not so great. So just a little tip right there. Unfortunately, Bath & Body Works is not my friend. It makes me sad. It smells good, but not so good for you. So that is a good one to use to help you kind of figure out, like, how do I avoid these? And I would go slow as you're starting to run out of one product. When you go to the store to buy the next one, just pull out your Yucca app and scan the one you normally get. You're probably going to be really upset and disappointed. It like kind of ruined my life. I had to replace pretty much everything in my house, but it feels good to know that I'm not putting a bunch of chemicals on myself. And especially us as women, with our skincare and our hair care routine, we are exposed to so many more chemicals, and we are so much more susceptible to those endocrine disruptors than like men are, and we're overexposing ourselves. So it is definitely something important that I think is worth mentioning here to try and avoid. So those are the top 3 things that are ruining your hormones, aside from being in perimenopause. So, right. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. If it was, let me know what you found helpful, what your takeaway was, and let me know too if there's any other topics you would like me to cover. Tomorrow, Friday, I think I will still be able to come on, so I'll be around tomorrow. And we are still running our 21-day boot camp for perimenopause. It is open until the end of November for a Black Friday special. You buy one, get one, and you get a free brief initial consult with me so we can dive into what's going on with your hormones a little deeper. This boot camp is an iteration of other things that I've done with my clients over the past 3 or 4 years now. It combines the meal plan that will help reverse your hormone issues and eliminate belly fat, an exercise plan that will help build muscle and strength and the strong bones that we need as we get older, and just brief overview of what's going on with your hormones so that you have a basic understanding of what's happening and what you can do about it. It also comes with live Zoom calls with me. So we're going to do group Zoom calls a couple Wednesdays a month. When we come together, we chat about some things. I got some topics we can cover, and then we can just do Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can ask me questions then, which is pretty amazing. This is probably not something I'm going to offer in the future, but right now, this is an extra value add that I really wanted to have for you guys. So if you are interested, you can either comment boot camp or you can send me a DM, and we can talk about it there and we can get you in. All right, guys. I hope you are having a lovely Thursday, and I will see you later. Bye.